Hello, Biggies. Welcome to, I think this is the 17th live show that
Wow.
we've done. That's kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, considering this was never really the plan. That is the 17 live shows over lockdown. That's in total.
No, God,
But
no. That's since we started, yeah.
Yeah.
17 live shows in, and we thought we'd do a special one because it's been a year since we did our documentary. Our documentary entitled Looking for New England, One for the Road. One for the Road is the series that we put aside for these videos, for these feature-length documentaries. COVID had something to say about this being turned into a series, but that was the idea behind it at the start. We'll tell you a little bit about why we wanted to do documentaries and why we chose New England for the first one. But before that, I'm going to crack myself a beer. Bradders, what are you drinking?
Well, okay, so we obviously drank some amazing New England IPAs out there. We also drank some incredible stuff from Notch, which was more in the style of Bohemian Pilsners and lagers, all that kind of stuff. It's been amazingly hot over here in the UK until today. So I bought lagers as well. Actually, you haven't got lager there, haven't you, Tony?
No, I haven't. I'm pouring one out for Roger Ryman, who was head brewer at Proper Job. That's the beer at St Austell, and sadly he passed away last week. So I'm pouring one out for him because I met him many times. We did many videos with him on the Craft Beer channel as well, and he was just the most delightful man, incredibly talented, not afraid to mince his words, and he'll be hugely missed by the industry. So I'm pouring a Proper Job for him, and I hope he rests in peace.
Cheers.
It's a fucking lovely beer. Right, so yes, this is our first ever feature-length documentary. We won, not one, but 2 awards for it. We won North American Broadcaster of the Year off the back of it, and according to the British Guild of Beer Writers, Broadcaster of the Year. Tonight we're going to be showing it in full. We're going to try and do some commentary, but obviously we don't really shut up during the documentary, so we're not going to talk over ourselves, but you can at least see our faces react as the silly moments go by. But yeah, the reason we wanted to do New England is because I think as a region, it's probably the place that's come to define the craft beer movement more than any, with the advent of New England IPA. And we wanted to go there, obviously, to visit all of those guys, but to sort of see what else was there. And to show that just because New England IPA comes from here, that's kind of not all that it does.
One thing it all had in common, though, Johnny, it was all amazing.
How many of those have you got? Have you got any more? No, just amazing.
This is an artist friend of mine from Margate called Charlie Evaristo Boise, as I call him. He makes these and flogs them to tourists and art collectors and whatnot. But I'm going to hold this up every time something amazing happens on screen, which is basically the whole of the bloody time.
Yeah, you're going to get tired arms, my friend.
Yeah.
Tired arms. Yeah, so throughout the documentary, I'd love to know in the comments, actually, which of you guys haven't seen it. I've already seen some people say that the documentary is what people discovered and kind of knew us for and what got you guys into our channel. So that's amazing. But if you haven't seen it, I'm really excited. I'll try not to give too many spoilers, but there's going to be great lager producers, great IPA producers, obviously, great Belgian-inspired breweries. Obviously, my boys up from Alchemist feature as well, and we'll talk about the origins of New England IPA and how it might not be quite as you think it is. And John Kimmich, the co-founder and head brewer at that brewery, has some things to say about where New England IPA's gone.
Sure does.
Yeah, so let's dive into the comments. Have a quick look. We're going to get the show started in about 10-15 minutes, we think. We've also just discovered a super cool feature on StreamYard, which is what we use. We're hoping if these prove successful enough, we will get a premium subscription to get rid of the weird duck that's
It's
there.
for me, it's there on my screen.
One day we'll get rid of the duck. You'll know we're cashing in. We're doing well when that happens. So let's share some comments because we can. Vinny13, no beer for me tonight as I'm slightly intoxicated from painting this radiator. You say this radiator? It's not my radiator, thank God. Tom Purdy says this doc got me into your channel. Looking forward to a rewatch. Us too.
I didn't really like our channel before we did this. But, it got me really into it.
There's probably lots of people that feel the same way, Brad. It's Tedge's first time on our live shows. Welcome. Got a home brew and then going for a quad from the cellar after that. Awesome. Our video today was about West Leicester, in which we mentioned that beer. I don't know whether that's why you've cracked it open or whether you just love Wednesdays.
Can I just say, I love this new feature. How cool is it that we can see you guys out there on the screen with your icons? There's Ben Filmbusters. I've been chatting to Ben a bit. Lovely guy. Great knowledge about film. Check out his podcast. Check it out.
I'm not sure how I feel about Ben's first viewing of this documentary being while he was naked. I don't know. Maybe people do watch us naked. Maybe that's a thing. I've certainly edited some of these naked.
Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't having a bath. He just watched it in the bath.
I think that's what. How IPA got famous in Europe, but not so much in India. Great question. We'll have to come back to that. That's a whole big topic. But we'll come back to that when we get to the Q&A section, which is just after we finish the documentary. What else have we got? Lord's Brewing Co. He's in his pants.
Of course he is. Nice one, John.
Emirates Forum mod. Arsenal fan, I presume. You visited St. Petersburg, Florida after our video. That is what we love to hear. We were blown away by how good St. Petersburg was. I hope you found it equally awesome. Sadly, one of the breweries that we went to there is now closed, which was Paradise.
Yeah.
And they made great beer, but the rest of them still out there, still making great stuff. Let us know what your highlights were, Emirates Forum mod.
Paradise were the only ones that they were predominantly using real fruit, weren't they, in their Florida Vice stuff, which must have been bloody expensive compared to the competition.
Absolutely, yeah. Compared to just making purees from these mega farms. But yeah, clearly it didn't pan out. Partusius Maximus is naked and fearless. Loving that.
Is that the name of his show or something?
It could be, couldn't it?
It sounds like a reality TV show to me.
But naked and...
There's Naked and Afraid, isn't there?
Naked and Afraid? So he's twisted on that.
They like drop the people in a helicopter or whatever, and they're butt naked in the outback, catching snakes with the snakes out. You haven't seen it, Johnny?
No, can't say I have. Can't say I have.
Yeah.
Can we get Brad's shirt? You've got a couple of them, haven't you? We could sell one.
I mean, this is a Craft Beer Channel shirt, hand tie-dyed by Hippie Brad. I wanted to sell these, but no one really seemed that into them, and they're handmade. They're hand tie-dyed. So we take the finished product. Brad tie-dyes it in his bath. Not while having a bath, but in his bath.
Oh dear, we've got the theme for this evening, haven't we?
Yeah, baths now. Yeah.
So, let us know your size, High Hops, and maybe we could get one out to you. We'll see. Speaking of High Hops, I appeared on their podcast. It came out on Sunday. So if you go to the High Hops podcast, look it up on whichever program you use, and you can find a podcast of me mouthing off at them. I apologize for my rants. Have you heard of any good projects? This goes well. This is going well, isn't it? Have you heard of any good projects breweries are doing to help pubs when they open up? Let's save the questions for the end. But yes, Pressure Drop have the best scheme out there at the moment. For every customer that pays, I think it's over 25 quid in their order, they'll give a tenner to a 10% discount to any pub that you nominate. So that's cool.
That is amazing.
There you go. You thought he'd forgotten about it. He hadn't. Okay, right. So in a second, we're going to be starting. How do I hide that? There we go. We're going to be starting the show. Some tiny caveats. One, we hope it's going to work. This is the craft beer channel, so things have happened in the past that haven't quite gone to plan, but we think it's going to work. There may be a little bit of jerkiness. It's not as high res as you'd watch it if you watched it in HD, just watching it live. So apologies for that. But otherwise, it should be great, and we should be offering some insight both during and after. We'd love you guys to get involved in the comments as we go. Tell us we're idiots. You can start asking questions, and I'll try to note them as well. But if I miss any, just ask them again when we get to the Q&A. Otherwise, I think that's all the notes. Is that all the notes? All our live shows are funded by you guys doing super chats, which is where you can give us a tip and you get a highlighted comment. So if you do have a little bit of spare cash and can fund us for that, that's awesome. If you can't, please don't worry about it. We get a little bit of advertising revenue off everything we do. But any donation to our cause is much appreciated.
I feel like if we get a super chat mid-show, we need to pause the show to answer it. What do you
make that promise.
That we might get inundated. That would be lovely. But it could take all night. Could take all bloody night.
Brad's way of selling is much more sneaky than mine. Right, cool. So we'll just have a quick check through the comments. Check there's nothing vital before we dive in, and then I'll get it all going.
Yeah. There's no beer box this week, but we have got a fucking exciting beer box coming up.
Of course, we should mention that before we start.
It's insane. We're collabing with Cloudwater Pool, Cloudwater Brewery, the big dogs, and we're bringing the freshest, tastiest box this side of the galaxy, and it's coming at you. Is it the 13th? Which is
13th Saturday.
It's an unlucky / it's got a magical number, so it's going to be great or it's going to be terrible. But the beer's going to be fucking amazing. So, yeah, get involved.
Absolutely, yeah. So Saturday 13th, we'll put a link towards the end of tonight. I'll dig out the link and pop that in so that you can buy the box if you want to. On a related note, actually, one of the beers is not going to be a Cloudwater beer. It's going to be a Rock Leopard beer, which is a beer designed by the only black-owned brewery in the UK. And I think it's a really good time to support that as well. So whether you buy a box, which will be supporting them, or you just go to the Cloudwater web store where they're selling them, that's a really great thing to do given what's going on at the moment. Be more Hopzine. There you go. Happy birthday, Rob, for whenever your birthday is. Do check out his channel for beer reviews. Right.
One more thing, Jonny. We also do a podcast.
Somebody said plug our podcast. Yes, we also do a podcast. It's called The Bubble. Monthly, we interview people from outside of the beer world about beer. So we've chatted to the fashion editor of GQ. We've chatted to one of the researchers at DrinkAware. Lots of exciting, slightly linked people to the industry. And then every single Friday, we do what's called the Friday 5 p.m. podcast, which is just a 20-minute podcast. It was designed for when you were commuting, going home, or cracking that first beer on a Friday, where Brad and I go through the comments from that week, talk about the news from that week, and generally nerd out and just get to talk a little bit longer than we do in our YouTube videos, which are typically a lot shorter. So do follow that every Friday at 5 p.m.
Vessel Beer, thank you for the super sticker.
Thank you so much for the super sticker.
Do you have a question before we get going?
You can have a question whenever you want it, guys. Thank you very much for the super sticker. Right, let's get this show on the road. On the one for the road. Didn't work. Right, so this is the scary moment. So hopefully.
Just love from Vessel Beer. Thank you. That's what we're about. The love. Thank you so much.
Love right back of you. Where's your block, Brad? Surely that deserves a block.
Amazing.
There it is.
Amazing.
Okay, guys, we're going to start the show now. We'll deal with all the questions that have come up towards the end. So thank you for those.
One more question. One more question. Are we shipping our glasses and apparel to the States? You can get our apparel. You can get our shirts from Teespring. At the moment, we're working on uploading a bunch of new designs as well, which should be on there in the next couple of weeks. Spring-summer collection 2020. Very exciting.
You say that like we've had previous collections.
Well, we've had this shirt and we've had the black shirt. So, there's going to be a bunch of new shirts. It's going to be
So you
swag.
can get shirts. I think even once COVID-19's over, our swag is available from beermerchants.com as well. But they've stopped doing international shipping during this whole shit show. There is no glass in the Cloudwater box from us, sadly. But we will be doing another one with Garage Beer Co. a couple of weeks after that, where we'll have our box. And I promise you, the hazy IPAs are equally delicious. God, look at that clear beer, Brad. We're not going to see much of that once the documentary gets going.
I need some head on it. Oh, no head. Come on. No, where's the head? Oh. Okay.
Cocktail stick. That's the trick.
I'm ready when you are, Johnny.
Right. Okay. So we are going to go live with our show. I hope this works. I hope you guys enjoy it. We love you and we will see you. Did I just see that or am I hallucinating? I hope it works and I hope you guys really enjoy it and we will catch you on the flippity flap.
Oh my God. This is ridiculous.
Brad, you're walking on water. You are Beer Jesus.
I'm the Beer Jesus. I just want to say, this is probably one of the best experiences of my life. It was.
It really fucking was. I can't believe. I watched this for a bit of research and my heart was hurting to get back there and to get traveling again.
Hell yeah.
I should say Brad did all of the animations for that. So it's footage we shot that Brad then stitched together, added the little cuts and all the text tracking. It's all in-house.
Since getting into beer, New England has had almost mythical status for us. Back in 2013, when we founded the channel, bright-eyed and naive, we heard of beers like Heady Topper, the best can of beer in the world. We imagined breweries like Allagash, where one wit fan had annexed a small part of Portland in the name of Belgium. We saw photos of IPAs we didn't even recognise as beer from a brewery called Treehouse that had challenged the notion of what could be called a pale ale.
In 2015, we shot a video where we compared Pliny the Elder to Heady Topper. In truth, they were incomparable without some vital context. But we didn't know that, nor did we know that the video would hit 55,000 views and help send us on the incredible journey we're on. It helped us grow as a channel and it encouraged us to go see these breweries, to get that context, not just geek out over a bottle or a can from several thousand miles away.
If we've learned one thing in the last 6 years, it's that beer is best enjoyed at source. The best beer memories are made when you can taste it as the brewer intended, in the place that it was made and with the people who inspired it. When we decided to start making documentaries that explain that, New England was the natural starting place.
And so here we are, turning myths into memories, watching our heroes at work, drinking with strangers on frozen lakes, singing in karaoke bars and squinting through the hangovers with the people who pretty much made the modern American beer scene. We're not here because of what we know about them, we're here because of what we don't.
We're here to cut through all the hype and truly find New England.
So buckle up, get on the wrong side of the road. This is Craft Beer Channel in New England.
So the first stop on our trip had to be Allagash. So that's kind of where New England brewing
all started. It's the first chapter in the story. Allagash is like nearly 25 years old.
Wow.
So they were around from...
Before we were calling it craft.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
So we're going over there to chat to a guy called Jason, who's the brewmaster. He's been there almost since the start. I think he's the third employee. So he's been there for a long old time. And he's responsible for lots of the recipes, including Allagash White. It smells like lamb and meringue pie, doesn't it?
It's beautiful, man.
And, you know, what we want to find out is it's super interesting that a beer like Allagash White, which is just about the least trendy style in the world, how that has done so well. And I think it's still growing. Compares and competes with all the hypey stuff that's going on. You know, the Hill Farmsteads, the heady toppers of these world that, you know, everyone talks about constantly. And yet I think we'll find that when they stop talking, everyone's crushing Allagash White. And the other thing we're going to learn about is all the amazing stuff that they do. So they're Belgium influence, which is really unusual in today's world, let alone back 25 years ago. So we're going to have a chat about the fact they got a cool ship and do lots of really cool mixed firm stuff. And Jason's kind of the figurehead behind all of that.
We started things off with a tour from Bob, who took us around the facility and routinely blew our tiny minds. He showed us how far the brewery had come, but also how small and precise they had managed to keep their processes. It doesn't feel like a 90,000 barrel brewery, and when you learn the history of the place, it never looked like it could become one either.
So the original footprint is right here where Rob started the brewery in the summer of 1994. He was hobbling together dairy tanks. He hand-jacked these drains, and he liked saying he didn't know what he was doing. So everything flowed away from the drains, not to the drains. That's why the floors next door are pristine. That would never happen again. But that's what we brewed Allagash White on from 95 all the way till 2007, which is incredible after you've seen the BrauCon or even the smaller system. I'm not even sure how that thing works.
You did a good job cobbling that together. That's like a legit brewery.
It does, you know, with the steps and everything up there, you know, mash louder. All of this equipment we still have. You know, we don't use it, but the grist case is still on the older system, but we've just built onto it. The mill we still use up on the mezzanine for pilot batches, for small stuff. The lauter tun, mash lauter, we used that lauter tun up until only about 3 years ago, on the older system. Now, we had it here, but then we needed space, so it's in our warehouse along with our Whirlpool. Yeah. But can't throw that stuff away, ever.
Their first brew kit isn't the only old thing in the brewery. Mixed in among the shiny steel and throughout their maze of extensions is wood. A hell of a lot of wood. All aging beer, whether it's mixed firm, spontaneous, or for their gorgeous bourbon barrel-aged triple.
So we've got everything. We've got barrels. We've got pudgeons. We've got some horizontal foeders. A cool way to explain some of these, terracotta pots, which is kind of cool, getting to like ancient Egypt. But a cool thing is, beside, you know, if it's not cool ship, you know, what we're doing out here is you could take a golden ale, you can inoculate it with our house Brett and put it in oak neutral. You have golden Brad. Same recipe, same yeast. You put it in a brandy barrel. It's a different beer. It's a Vora. You can take the two and blend them. You can take that blend and put it on fruit. All kinds of things. So what's going on out here? It's just the possibilities are endless. This is Jason. Jason's the one out here pulling nails, taking notes, thinking of blends, all this kind of stuff.
Stood in the tiny space where the brewery's history was made, surrounded by repurposed dairy tanks, was quite the moment for us. Made all the more special by the idea of their creator still being the brains and the brawn behind it all. Enter Jason.
Tell me about you. So you were like third or fourth employee at Allagash back in the 90s?
Yeah, it depends on whether you count Rob or not. But yeah, I was one of the early employees, started in 1999.
Were you coming in as sort of a production brewer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were very small back then. So, you know, effectively it was Rob and one other employee, another full-time employee, and then a part-time employee. So it was everybody did everything back then, you know, a little bit of everything. I did come with a little bit of experience at other breweries. I worked for a small brewery in Missoula, Montana for about a year before moving back to Maine. And then I worked for a brief stint at Gritty McDuff's, another brewery here in Maine. and then started with Rob. So yeah, at that point it was all hands on deck, brewing, filtering, bottling, you name it. Everybody did.
Yeah, so it wasn't like there was brewing and the water production and packaging.
It was like
everyone's
brew on Mondays, maybe Tuesdays, keg on Wednesdays, pack, bottle on Thursdays, clean the floors on Fridays, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little bit of everything.
And what was the sort of reception back then? Because obviously now if you start a brewery, often you'll be focused on IPA or maybe lagers as your core thing. Starting with a wit beer, craft beer hadn't really kicked off back then.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's sometimes we have to remind ourselves a little bit of what it was like back then, because Allagash White is a beer that's in the markets that we're in today is a beer that you see around. You can get it at a lot of different places, and it's a beer style that craft brewers have a little more understanding of. Certainly haziness in a beer is something people are familiar with now. But in 1995 when Rob started, and really for the first 10 plus years, it was a constant battle for us to educate consumers about what we were doing. People would look at the beer and think it looked funny. They'd smell the beer, they think it smelled funny. So it was every event we did, every account that we were trying to sell the beer in, it was more explaining what the history of the style was and getting people on board. So it was really, frankly, a pretty big struggle at that point, because craft beer was around. Maine was an early adopter to craft beer, but the styles that were predominantly found here in Maine and throughout New England were more English style, maybe a little bit of German style mixed in, but Belgian style brewing was, and Belgian style brewing was just not common. We've done a lot of innovative things over the years here at the brewery, whether it's our spontaneous fermentation program or barrel aging or whatever it may be. But I often say that this is the most innovative thing we ever did by launching the brewery with this beer, especially given the context of the time. And we even intentionally say we don't brew Belgian style beers here per se. We brew Belgian inspired beers, because there's even the concept of style in general amongst Belgian brewers is a lot of times really foreign. If you were ask a Belgian brewery what style their beer is, they look at you like you're crazy. Like they don't necessarily think of it that way. That's just our beer. This is the beer we make. And that kind of philosophy and approach to making beer, it certainly influences us, but I think it's influenced American craft beer dramatically. So, in terms of think outside the box, don't just think about classic ingredients and classic approaches. Use barrels, use spices, use Brettanomyces, use all these things, has somehow infiltrated its way into American craft beer in general. Even if you're not per se making Belgian style beers, I often think that somewhere it's in the influence of a lot of brewers, making beers that go beyond traditional styles. And I'm not sure I'm going to make the jump to say that Belgian inspiration is what led to the New England style IPA per se, but I mean, I think that approach to brewing it has some influence on that, on the way that American craft beer has evolved.
Leaving a place like Allagash is hard. The welcome you get is like coming home, and the beers you try are transcendent, almost timeless.
But once Jonny had dropped all his cash on merch, we hit the road again with Jason's declaration in mind. Why did this region's breweries take the India Pale Ale and flip it on its head? And how did New England IPA become so wildly popular?
I spent so much money at Allagash.
I wanted one of the coolers.
Yeah, they were absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Jonny, where are we going today, mate?
So if we want to really learn about New England IPA, like its origins, like the original ideas for it, we should go to where it kind of started.
Yes, good idea. Origins.
So we're headed to the Alchemist.
Which
is a bit of a bucket list for me. So these guys kind of invented the New England IPA. A guy called John Kimmich in his brew pub in Waterbury, which we, I think we just went through. But he was brewing lots of stuff in a brew pub there, including a beer called Heady Topper.
We all know about
Heady Topper. So New England IPA is sort of characterized by three certain things. One is the amount of esters, the amount of yeast flavors you get from it. Two is complete lack of bitterness.
Right.
And three is sort of a juicy, sweet aroma and really thick body.
It's totally different to the West Coast, isn't it?
Exactly.
Not got that bitterness, like you say.
So what we're going to ask John is where he got the idea for that from, and obviously where he thinks his differs from a New England IPA, because at 80 IBU, Heady Topper is bitter as fuck. And so I'd love to know what he thinks of, what's come out of the style of brewing that he kind of invented.
Spoiler alert,
As
he
it
doesn't
turns
like
out, John
it.
is some kind of mad genius, somewhere between Professor Frink and Hugo Drax from Moonraker, in a Gile.
We follow him in nothing but awe around a brewery that makes sensational and finely tuned beer, but has its fair share of unusual elements too. Namely lots of dogs and...
I like Big Bird, so who doesn't like Big Bird? That's what happens when you have more than one Heady Topper and you have fathead.com on your handheld supercomputer.
I wish we had fathead.com in
3
the
days
UK.
later,
I know,
Big
right?
Bird shows up in the mail.
Brad's
With the
house would be a
venerable Big
mess.
Bird watching over us, talk starts with his house yeast, Conan, which has famously been, shall we say, borrowed by breweries and yeast banks all over the world who want that hazy look, rich body, and signature flavour.
It's fair to say that this is the yeast that started the New England IPA revolution, and many of the breweries around the world making it are using derivatives of this yeast.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Leather Beer. I see on some of these tanks you've got new Conan. Yep. So is that a fresh pitch of that yeast?
Yep. So we go a certain number of generations before we bring it back in again.
Yeah.
So any yeast will go through a curve of flavor profile. I've been using that yeast for 20 plus years, so I'm very aware of what it does all the way up to 100 generations. Those years in the pub, I had total freedom to push it through all different kind of situations, so I'm intimate to what that yeast is capable of. It's an amazing yeast, but there's a lot of amazing yeasts out there. A lot of people focused on that as the heart of everything, and it certainly is a major part of the flavor profile. But you try a million beers that are made with what they're calling that yeast, what they're getting out of our cans, and I haven't had one yet that that has nailed it. Which makes total sense. Because nobody's getting what we use. You're getting the runtiest of the runts that actually made it into a can and finally settled on the bottom. That's starting point, So I attribute so much of the super milky, murky beer out there to that. I think they're using that bastardized version of our yeast that they're buying from all these yeast labs.
Yeah.
And because it hangs in the beer, obviously, because those are the least flocculent cells out of a gajillion cells. So everything that you grow off of that is going to have those characteristics. So they're all going to be not want to flocculate when you use it from then on. So that's why you see so many of these beers, I think, that taste vaguely of our beers, but are just like mud.
Do it,
Along
Lord's
with using only
Brewing.
British
Do
malt,
it.
John has
Do
a
it,
very
John.
particular approach to
Big
his hop
bird.
selection, which means all those who think Heady has changed over the years are right. But it's definitely for the better.
So every year, kind of February-ish, that's when the New Year's version of these beers is being released to the world. So it's a really cool process, because I go out west and I select the lots that I want, specific lots within the whole harvest of all these hops. So that's when I design the flavor of Heady Topper and Focal Banger, what they're going to taste like for the next year.
So you're making a tweak each year,
Sure.
let's
Some
say it's
breweries
going to be a little bit more like this year.
Some breweries take a different approach to it, and they will. Some breweries will try to hit that window perfectly every year, so they will pick certain lots that fit their target. To me, when I go out there, I want the stuff that just sets my senses on fire. The one that is that's the one. That's what I shoot for every year. It's always the same recipe in that it's the same varieties, but that's what's so cool about it. Simcoe one year versus another, or one state or field versus another, or the time they were harvested, they're all so wildly different. They're in the same ballpark, but when I say wildly different, literally I'm talking specifics. You know, to most people would be like, oh, these are all the same, but to a trained nose, you can really gravitate toward what you want. So it's fun because when like the hops we selected, oh, so good.
I love
so
this
good.
bit.
It all just switched over recently.
So you're not going for the same, you're going for better, like the best ones.
I'm going for the best example of what I can buy every year. I want it to be, well, bam, this is 2019 heady was like, wow, you know, every year it's wow, but it shifts and undulates within that kind of zone of what it could taste like.
He's
Because
beer
some years
Yoda.
Simcoe's like all cat piss, and some years
Here we go.
it's all
Here we go.
pine, and some years it's nothing but fruit.
Yep.
It's finally coming back into that catty. Oh, like that's on
Catty
where it
madness.
hasn't been since like the mid 2000s. Like it's gone through a big evolution through these many years, and so now this year it was like, oh, this is like it used to be, you know. So it's cool. The heady is dynamite this year, in the sense that it tastes even more like weed than before.
In creating the New England style, John has made something he thought was unique to him. So what does he think of the beers that have come from his way of thinking but have been taken to different extremes?
For better or for worse, not many of the New England IPAs we taste these days bear much resemblance to the Alchemist. And I think John agrees.
When you have that level of hopping, there has to be a level of bitterness that goes with it. Otherwise, they become so soft and so over hopped that to me, they lose everything. Absolutely, there's too much of a good thing, in my opinion. I've tried everything under the sun. You name it, I've tried it.
Because people probably bring it to you and go, hey.
Well, aside from that, I mean, me, myself, in my brewery, have tried all different levels of hopping, different times of hopping, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, what we settle on and do here is what, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. You're ridiculous. You got to get down, Cookie. Come on. So I think that what is going on with this craze of New England IPA and what it's now morphed into, quite often people drink our beer and are like, boy, it's not turbid enough. It's not hazy enough. It's whatever. It's old school. I like it when people call our beer old school. There are people that are being raised on these incredibly soft, chalky, and frankly undrinkable versions of this style. You know, there are breweries out there doing it very well, but again, like anything, there are a lot that are not doing it well. What I find amazing about IPA is its thirst quenching ability, that crisp, beautiful, bright mineral blockiness that supports all of that hop character and makes it refreshing on your palate, and makes you want that next sip. That's what I'm striving for in an IPA. That's, in my opinion, what it should be. What I find more often than not with those soft ones is it smells great up front. That first sip, you're like, you know, and then I quickly lose interest in them. There's nothing draws me back to have that next sip.
Suffice to say, we were thirsty for more. So after a delicious luscious, we headed to a young upstart hazemaker in Burlington, 40 minutes drive away.
Luscious.
John has been pretty down.
What a
on
beer.
England
It's their
IPAs.
best beer. Their
Biofilm
stout.
is a brewery John likes, so we were intrigued to see if it was different to the kinds of IPAs we were used to.
John was like the weirdest, coolest uncle ever. I hope I turn into a John Kimmich when I'm a little
I
bit
think you're
older.
halfway there, buddy. You're just missing the kids.
That's it.
We'd heard a lot about foam, but it wasn't the kind of place we'd expected. The tap room, just meters from the water of Lake Champlain, was small and beautiful, like Gaudi gone steampunk. We got chatting to another Bob who introduced the brewery to us over a few beers.
So we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary, which is pretty exciting. We opened it up with this brew house just like this. Kind of added a few things here and there, but it's a direct fire, 7-barrel Bennett Forge Works system made for us out in Colorado. It's a little workhorse, that's for sure. It,
as well as being a
yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple. We really wanted to set it up so we can really be doing the brewing ourselves. We have a control panel up there, but it's just for VFD control, pump control, and also for the hot water tank, because 7-barrel all the way across. We have a 7-barrel hot water tank, so it's a little undersized for a traditional brewing system. And especially because we use that hot water tank for all of our hot water needs in the brewery. So cellar, obviously brew house. We also use it for back bar and the bathrooms. We started off with 4 7-barrel fermenters and quickly realized that we needed more. So we added 5 and 6 and then eventually 7. And we had another space for one more fermenter, and we decided to drop in a 10-barrel foeder from Foeder Craft Foods. It's American white oak, lightly toasted and steamed, so it doesn't have a lot of tannins left in the wood. And it really has a nice citrus character that it promotes, that the beer picks up in there. So we really took kind of a traditional brew pub model and revamped it, I guess you could say. We wanted people to come to us. We wanted the beer to be poured in our facility, our establishment. We really wanted to be able to kind of control people's environment when they're drinking our beer, especially to start out. So put a lot of money and time and energy into the aesthetics of this place. We worked with a gentleman named Russ Bennett as our general contractor, and he's kind of famous in the music world in a way. He's behind the visual stuff and all the art installations at Bonnaroo Music Festival, Boston Calling, and all the fish festivals. He lives in Waitsfield, Vermont. He's a very eccentric person, really cool person to know. He's known as the Wizard of Oz. He kind of looks like Gandalf, big white beard. But he's
a bit psychedelic. I love your
totally.
Your like iron.
Yep, that's actually the foam sign. Yeah, over the copper. It's pretty. It's definitely interesting and unique, I think. Yeah. We do a lot of different styles of beer. We're always doing new things. We've brewed about 650 times over the past 3 years, and 275 of those beers have been different beers. So that includes double IPAs, pale ales, the big hitters, of course, and then we have our mixed culture foeder beers. We have any style you can really think of. We haven't done a brown ale, but maybe sometime.
So we were starting to understand why people were raving about this brewery. The approach, the aesthetic, the variation in the beer were all incredible for such a young brewery. The relaxed, organised chaos had a feel of many busy hands, and that turned out to be right as we sat down with another founder, John.
So I'm here with John, one of the founders of Foam.
Yep, I'm one of 5 of the founders and partners.
The 5 founders is quite a lot. What's the story of Foam at the start?
So yeah, five partners is quite a lot. Thinking back, I can't imagine doing it with anything less than 5 partners, knowing how much work it's been. But we actually all connected at another brewery in town. We all worked at Switchback for a little while. That's how we overlapped. And all kind of had a shared vision for what we wanted to do, had some experience in the industry, and complemented each other in different ways. So it was actually quite natural. When you're starting a business, people will kind of tell you, don't work with somebody just because they're your friend or just because they're good at their job. And thankfully, we were able to have both experiences. So we knew we could work together. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, and knew that we could sit back and have a beer at the end of the day and get over any hurdles that had come up. So
Todd, who was he's like the most experienced brewer among you guys.
Yes.
He had a sort of a side project already that was mixed firm.
Yes. So Foam was kind of started. The concept was started by Bob, our head brewer, one of my partners, and Sam, another brewer, and one of my partners. They were starting the concept of Foam while Todd was actually pretty far along with House Fermentology, which we now kind of defer to as our side project mixed fermentation barrel program. And so Todd was working on that while they were scheming up Foam, and not while that was all happening. Todd was actually all of our boss at the time. He was the production manager at Switchback.
Tangled web.
Yeah, it was a tangled
Secrets
web
being
of
kept.
things. And one day, Bob and Sam invited Todd out for a beer, and apparently he thought that they were going to quit, and so he was not in a very good mood. And then they actually invited him to start the brewery with him.
We're quitting, but can you come?
Come with us. Yeah.
So Switchback was getting pretty big, I think, at the time. You guys started small here with a brew pub kind of vibe. Was that because you guys wanted the smaller approach, the hands-on approach to brewing?
We're still great friends with the folks at Switchback. They make some awesome beer and great people. But in a lot of kind of what's happened over time is in the 90s, 2000s, the goal was to get many different draft accounts as possible, because that's where people were buying the beer. And what that in turn did to the industry was it meant that you kind of had to have your staple beers that the bartender knew what they were pouring day in and day out. It held a line, and that was a great thing for the business. But what that does to production is it means that the brewer is brewing the same beer or the same 2 or the same 3 beers day in and day out, which is great for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't necessarily, like, brewing is very much manual labor, but it's also very much creativity and science, and the aspect of creating something new is a beautiful intellectual challenge. And when you brew the same thing day in and day out, you start to lose that once you get to know it in and out. So a big part of the inspiration for starting Foam was to create a space, to create a brewery where we were able to brew beers the way we wanted to, how we wanted to do it. And that in turn meant to create something that was very small. So we wouldn't have to, we could try to, instead of trying to go for larger amounts of quantity, we could focus on doing smaller quantities with a smaller team, but make sure it was sustainable, and we were selling the beer as fresh as possible, and we could be experimental and do something out there. Vermont is kind of one of those special places that has always supported the artisan, the craftsman, the maker, and that somebody who's really proud of their craft and what they do. So that lends itself to support craft beer and being innovative and trying some specialty stuff out.
Who are you looking at when you saw those beers coming out? Who was leading that charge?
I mean, you look at our neighbors, Alchemist, a big inspiration, Hill Farmstead, a big inspiration. Yeah, I think it was this kind of mix of, we look up to these 5 different breweries and what they're producing and the way that they're making these beers, and then kind of picking our favorite parts of each one, you know what I mean? Like, well, this has been really phenomenal in this beer, but if we were to change it, what would we look to do?
There's no totally new ideas. Like brewing now is like, I love that and that and that, and that's kind of how New England came about. Like this kind of wit beer, English bitter, IPA thing that came together with yeast esters, aromatics, soft bitterness. Yeah.
When we opened up, we had a Pilsner on, we had 2 Saisons, a wheat beer, and then a couple of hoppy options, which all kind of fell into that softer, more aromatic arena of IPA. This is when we first opened up, people were starting to use different terms for what that was, but it wasn't accepted that it was New England IPA. There was still debate whether it was Vermont IPA or New England or just IPA. So we were just brewing hoppy beers the way that we enjoyed drinking them, and that tended to have a gentler bitterness, really focus on the aromatic qualities. And yeah, I think next thing you know, we were having folks line up for those beers, and we were brewing them more and more often, and it kind of just snowballed from there.
So more on what he just said in a second. But as you could probably see from that interview, the light pouring through the big warehouse windows was stunning. So we packed a few cans to go watch the sunset. John mentioned it was worth heading to the lake to see it, especially since you could bloody walk on it.
You can bloody walk on it, Johnny.
Brad was the happiest fucking man. I've never seen Brad as happy as just drinking a beer stood on water.
I'm easily pleased, you know, defying the laws of physics.
Yeah, it was. This is a moment that will go down in my memory forever.
I don't really know how to describe this, but I'm walking on a frozen lake in the.
I was so cold.
Oh, it's in New England.
But I didn't care.
Lake Champlain. It's pretty insane. Look at this sunset. It's incredible. I'm fucking freezing. I reckon it's about -10.
It wasn't.
But this
It
is one of
was.
the most
It
beautiful
was
things
not.
I've ever seen. We just met some lovely New Englanders.
They had an awesome dog,
shared
which
a
I think
beer
we
with
show.
them. It's a special place.
There he
Good
is.
boy. Good boy. Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
This is me walking on water, looking at New York State as the sun sets, back onto foam brewers. Fuck railway arches, man. Right, enough figure skating, let's fucking do it. Let's talk about New England's least popular export, the Haysbro queue. Now, on the one hand, I feel like we shouldn't be queuing for foodstuffs like we're in communist Russia. But on the other hand, if there's demand for it and people don't mind, who are we to judge?
We've never witnessed a true beer queue before. So we hit the road again and headed to Treehouse, a brewery that we love, to see what we thought of it after waiting 2 hours for a 6-pack.
So this is the brewery I think that lots of people think of when they think of New England and New England IPA. And they have an incredible site there. I went there 2 years ago, and it was 3 years ago. And it was a small space, very beautiful, very family kind of orientated, with I think they had their girlfriends and their wives and their mums and their dads helping out. This time, it's a big operation. They had a massive expansion. They're now dealing, I think, with thousands of people coming in every day. So we got up super early, which wasn't easy, given the trip that we're doing, to go see them at 11 a.m. in the morning as soon as they open the doors. It's probably going to be a queue, but that's part of the experience, right, Brad?
Yep, I can't wait to go in the treehouse. They have a treehouse, right?
I don't think there's a treehouse there anymore.
This felt a little bit like a theme park to me, Treehouse.
Definitely did. Bit Jurassic Park.
Very. That
Dinosaurs.
sign was incredibly Jurassic Park on the way in.
Oh, fuck that noise. We wanted a queue of like an hour.
I know we wanted a queue for the dock, but
Yeah, this is a bit much.
I immediately regret waking up this morning.
Maybe it'll move fast.
But it won't know, will it?
No, Brad, probably not.
So, Brad, how was your treehouse experience?
It was long. There's way too much queuing. But we did get this. I sound like a 5-year-old. King of the Juliuses. It's too much queuing.
Out there at it now.
You got a great line
It's
coming.
kind of cool. It's got a nice festival atmosphere.
Yeah, just no drugs, but yeah, festival atmosphere, sands, drugs, and music. Just the queuing.
I was all ready to not be cynical about having to queue for an hour and a half, and then I queued for an hour and a half, and I ended up a tiny bit cynical.
I'm not into the line culture. I think I get it. It's hypey and stuff, but for me, I'm not into it. I would have gone straight to the bar. I should have
left
left
me
you
queuing for the
in
cans.
queue for the cans. That would have been.
That's why I made you designated driver, because I
Exactly.
knew you would do that otherwise.
Arrgh.
Yeah, so it took us an hour and a half to get to the front, and then another 10 minutes to get draft afterwards. But you can drink in the line, and there's food trucks. And we had a nice chat with some guys that do it like pretty regularly. Although they were chastising themselves for turning up at 11. Don't turn up when it opens. Turn up before, or turn up much later.
Yeah, apparently tonight it's fine.
It'll be,
It's
yeah,
just
kind of dead.
a morning thing.
Yeah. So yeah, lines are
you
slightly
drinking?
weird, but it's great to be here drinking in perpetuity.
I'm on the Julius.
On the
Or is it
Julius.
the Julius?
I don't know, and we've got some King Julius, which is very exciting. So
Wasn't that exciting, was it?
Brew once a year.
It tastes amazing at source, I must say.
Yeah, it really does. Not a muled can in a suitcase from a friend.
No,
Although we'll be doing that for our friends right now.
So we'd sum up queuing for a beer like that as something you only do once. It's not a great experience, but we get why some people might enjoy or perhaps tolerate the camaraderie, the chats, and the tinnies in the line. Thankfully, the line was a lot shorter at the barbecue restaurant down the road, where you can take your hard-earned beers for some serious indulgence.
This was so good. This was so good.
But what's it like as a brewery to manage those expectations and the pure logistics of it all? Even if some breweries are guilty of building the hype, others are simply reaping the rewards and the punishment. We headed up the coast to Bizzle Brothers, another upstart that's only a year or two older than Foam, but has a ton of hype and queues going around the block. There we chatted to founder Pete Bizzle about how they cope.
So I'm here with Alex from Bissell Brothers. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Not at all. It's such a beautiful space. I had no idea.
Oh, thanks.
It's pretty special. So you guys, I was going to say you are sort of younger on the scene of New England, but actually 5 years means you're probably one of the older guys now.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah. You don't think of 5 as being a seasoned veteran, but things have changed so much since we've been in business. Yeah. There's a whole new wave of brewers in this state and everywhere that are, a whole generation of ideas and different takes on beer. So beer has not slowed down at all in our relatively what I thought was a short time being open. We've seen a lot, and we're continuing to see things change. So
I mean, demand has been huge, and I think something that New England's become synonymous with is sort of the lining up for your beer, which you wouldn't have expected 10 years ago, but now people want to come to the source and they want to get it here. How's that been to see people lining up, around the corner?
It was crazy when it first started at the original place.
That Metallica hoodie was sensational, but it was the lobster roll restaurant.
You got to deal with this.
Which is great.
You got a problem.
I can't remember what it was called. Maine Lobster Co.
And I really think that we did a good job.
High Roller.
High Roller, that was it.
Not
of course it was.
Saying, okay, let's triple down on production and put this in every convenience store and go to all these other places that we could have gone with it. We just really worked to process people fast when there is a line, to really make it a memorable experience, to give the customer validation, not just in getting this beer that they perceive as valuable, but to really make the experience part of it. Yeah. And we think a lot about that. What's it like to stand in this line? When we were first getting into this, some of those pilgrimages to breweries where you walk in and it's like, wow, we're here. This is crazy. It's exciting. It should be fun. Yeah. And I think for there's a lot of people that I see in the line all the time. It's fun for them. They're not feeling put off by having to wait. They're feeling excited. They like being the ones that can tell others in the line, here's how it goes. I've done this before. So
it's a bit of kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. So for some people, it really is. That's part of the experience. It validates them to get something that people are waiting for.
Can you see it? Got the merch too.
It's only made here.
Bizzle Brothers. Can't really see it, but it's Bizzle Brothers.
It helped us as a company to
look turn off the light.
Phenomenon of lines and
fuck
line
off
culture
light
from all
there
angles.
You
not
go.
Okay. People want this beer. Like, let's make more of it, but not do anything to speed up the process or to look at it and turn the stone over every which way to think about the psychology of why are these people queuing? There's something there. Can we use that to make the whole experience just really great for them? If they already are down here and they're willing to wait for an hour, let's maybe make it so they only wait a half an hour and they still get that feeling of validation, but it's just easier for everybody. It's easier for the staff. So it's been fun to look at the science of it and the psychology of it and really try to wrap it into making it the best experience possible.
Make it
and
part
more
of the experience, not a barrier to it. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Is it still IPAs they're coming for, or is that getting a bit more diverse as you get more diverse as a brewery?
There's a couple beers that we release throughout the year that we anticipate high turnout for. Some of our bigger barrel-aged stouts, our fruited beers. We actually had the first release from.
Should we make trucker hats, Johnny?
Here in Portland.
We should do.
And
I
people
love
are
a trucker
familiar with
hat,
the
but
name.
I only
It's
fit the
been
kids'
released in
ones.
cans for
I've got a
some
very
years.
small
Kettle
head,
sour.
but a very big
This was the
forehead.
first time
I only
that
fit the
Bissell
ones that you can
Farmhouse Ale,
expand because I've got an extra giant head.
So we need extra small and extra large.
bottled condition.
Oh, it's going to cost a fortune.
But
Oh.
people came out in a big amount for that. But mainly, primarily,
This beer is
Swish.
fucking amazing,
In
Swish.
summer,
It's a really
there's
good
usually
double
a line on
IPA.
Saturday, regardless of
Swish.
the release. But overall, we're seeing that line
They have
culture
the
go
best
away. Slowly but
box
surely,
stacking
more
I've
good
ever
producers
seen
on
in
the
my
market.
life. I don't know if it's in. Did it make it up?
I think there's a shot coming.
Yeah.
Ah,
Understandably, all the breweries have been at pains to point out the stuff they do outside of IPA. And while it's the style that dominates, it's a recent development. New England has decades of brewing history that predates its
maybe
eponymous
not.
style. To learn about that and all of the things going on in the scene, we headed into central Portland, a beautiful, historic and, shall we say, kooky harbour town with surprisingly rich food and drink scene.
there it
What
is.
you got there, Brad?
There's high roller.
Whoopie pie.
What's a whoopie pie?
Whoopie pie is basically an American has taken a Cornish pasty format into cake form, and it's like a sort of carryable, shove in your mouthable cake.
We like them.
It's so pig. I don't remember it being
After a
that
few
pig.
hours exploring and a visit to the most famous craft beer bar,
We're
in the
drinking
Lower
made beer
Res,
right there.
we went to Liquid Riot, a brewery and distillery down by the water, for a few drinks with Carla Jean Lauter, beer columnist for Maine Today, and someone who has watched the scene grow from local curiosity to world famous attraction.
How long have you lived in this?
I have lived in Maine since 2009, but in New England and
I rolling.
since 2000. So
I've gone
been here
pink.
almost 20 years in New England.
So you've seen the full arc, like you've seen Allagash grow from.
Oh, absolutely.
a
I
tiny
remember.
baby to
I
a
remember visiting
state
Allagash when it was weird to go to a brewery. It was an industrial space. They didn't really have a tasting room, but you could sign up for a tour and then you could have a couple of samples afterwards. And a couple of years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, they changed the law here that said you could have a tasting room and you could charge for samples and you could kind of make yourself more of a destination. But before that point, especially when I started getting into craft beer, I was a weirdo for going and visiting these industrial spaces and, kind of making sure I had closed-toed shoes on so that I could take these tours. Whereas now, visiting a tasting room is definitely part of Maine's culture around its beer. You go there, you hang out.
She was lovely.
Carla's great, yeah. Really great Twitter account to follow for beer, feminist issues, and she also has an amazing job. I think she works for NASA, so there's insight there as well. She's awesome.
Or I think it might be NORAD or something. It was high level shit.
Yeah. She covered the bill at the karaoke bar we're about to go to.
Did she?
That's why it all went wrong.
I
Yeah.
think we were so pissed. I don't even remember who paid.
I was like, no, we'll pay.
So it is a money.
She was like, no, I work for NASA or
You
whatever
don't
it
have
was.
an IPA. It's a risk. You are always going to make.
Are you watching the new Steve Carroll thing about? It's called Space whatever on Netflix.
Not yet. We'll discuss it afterwards. I've watched one episode.
For people who might enjoy
Okay.
beer, the people who love bitter coffees might really love some stouts. The people who love, sour and fermented foods might actually really love, a wild ale, something like that. And I think what's really happened in Maine is that, yeah, there are definitely breweries that fall into that, like, I'm a haze brewery, I'm making, 5 different types of the same, kind of IPA, but there's so much more to that that's all readily available, and it's being distributed to places like Portland, so you can get them side by side. You don't necessarily have to go to them to get the whole diversity of style, but I love to see new styles come about, like the brewed IPA kind of making its way, but I also like to see older styles resurrected. So, like, I recently read about a Doppelbock coming back. That's a thing that people don't brew anymore, but people, when they have it, they go, oh, wow, this is a totally different experience than drinking a hazy IPA.
Yeah. So we're here at Liquid Riot,
Yes.
which is pretty much on the waterfront
Yep.
in Portland. Huge variety of beers on tap, all from one brewery.
Yep.
And then spirits.
And also a distillery. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've come across quite a few distilleries. Is that a movement that's happening now
It is. I would say in the last 2 years, there's been a little mini boom of them. A lot of them, they're kind of making those spirits and putting them in barrels and kind of waiting, to see what comes out on the other end. But some of them have done a really nice job of just kind of taking advantage of the fact that local is a real huge value here. People want local food, they want local beer, and they also want their spirits to be as local as possible. So there is definitely a boom. There's like 3 or 4, at least in the Portland city limits, distilleries available, and there's more than a dozen statewide. And it's just really fun to see the different perspectives, to try the gins from the different, to see what they've done with their botanicals, to try the whiskeys from different ones, to see, kind of how they've aged them and what they've done with them. But it's all being driven, I think, by that consumer desire to know what you're drinking came from.
Yeah. What do you think, given that there's this huge charge towards local, what do people think about the fact that so many people from around the world are asking and getting cans muled around the world of the beer that's being made here?
Well, I mean, what's fun about that is that, what we love here, it's that embodiment of the fact that if you brew what you love, people are going to love it. And if people love it locally because it's local, but also because it's good, people away from town will also like it as well. So I don't love the idea that, people are standing in line and reselling a brewer's, beer for a profit. They're going and getting something and then kind of selling it to another market as a kind of shady second retailer. But I understand where that's coming from, because when you limit the distribution, you automatically create a demand, right? It's rarer. It's more valuable.
I had to show my credit card and my ID to prove they were from the same person.
Oh, wow. So that you weren't buying for someone else?
Yeah. Which is a whole new level of
I mean, I would say in Maine, we're not quite there. Like Hill Farmstead is kind of a mythical brewery in that sense.
Yeah.
People make pilgrimages there.
I wasn't sure it existed until we actually
Yeah.
got that.
And it's a little bit, it's in the middle of nowhere, right? So it's but we've gotten to the point now though where the reputation of Portland's beer has been enough that people are actually visiting and coming to Portland specifically for beer. The Maine Brewers Guild has done studies about the tourism impact of our beer industry, and it's huge. Like, there are people who are literally coming to the state of Maine to vacation for the beer first, not even the oceans, the lobster rolls, the everything else that we used to have in tourism. They want to go, and they want to go up to Oxbow in Newcastle, and they want to go over to Bissell Brothers, and they want to get fresh cans.
Oxbow.
They want to, have these
Yeah, we tried to see them and we couldn't, but we did. Carla took us. There we go. Took us to the Oxbow place, but we didn't meet the guys, sadly. I met them in Copenhagen.
So after that enlightening and serious chat, things got kind of out of hand. We did a crawl through all the best spots of Portland, like Oxbow, where Brad had a slight prima donna moment.
Mate, what's this pour about, you bastard?
I ordered you the wrong thing. It is 10.5.
I don't want to play thimble, you dick.
And some of the worst, including, to our eternal shame, a karaoke bar.
This dude is pretty good on the suite.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jonny did Team CBC proud with a heartbreaking rendition of Drops of Jupiter.
Best song ever. This guy wanted to have a threesome with us. You remember? Oh, Brad's gone. Nobody to verify that fact. He wanted Brad. Getting the crowd working.
I wish I had the pipes of you, Jonny. You've got good pipes.
Can't believe I never got the music career I was born to have.
Never too late. Never too late.
Coffee and donuts for a hungover Brad. That's
These were potato donuts, weren't they?
They were.
Pretty good.
Hungover, tired, and with some sore vocal cords, we were rapidly coming to the end of our journey. And as John Kimmage had predicted, we were starting to get a little tired of all the endless IPA, even if we were switching it up constantly with Allagash White.
We had one more brewery we really wanted to visit. Notch and Salem aren't often mentioned on the forums or in articles on New England, but every good beer bar we went to had something from them in Massachusetts, and with good reason.
Notch are actually nearly 10 years old. So in a country famous for completely ruining the very notion of a Pilsner, Chris Luring's brewery has been doing it right and against the tide for a long old time.
So the next stop on our epic journey is Notch, a brewery that I fell in love with at a beer festival in the UK. We got very, very drunk and ended up doing a podcast with Paul from Cloudwater and with Brianne and Chris from Notch. They make fantastic lager. And I think that's a really important tale to tell in New England as well, because there's these guys, there's Jack's Abbey, Bissell Brothers are starting a lager project. So that's a movement that's happening now in New England. And as you know, Brad and I love lager. She's thinking, like, we've spent so much time talking about the culture of IPA, and then you come over, and when you're drinking lager, you start talking about life. And that's what we're probably going to end up doing after a couple of delicious, dry German and Czech style lagers.
Chris, John Kimmage, and Chris from Greenbench, my three favourite American brewers as people.
Yeah, they're all
amazing, amazing dudes.
So I'm here with Chris, founder of Notch, and even doing brewing today. There's not a lot of founders that get to do that these days.
No, I still jump in the brew house once in a while. This week, twice. We had a brewer go down with a shoulder injury, so I'm filling the gaps.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that at all.
No, you get to get your hands dirty and remember what it's like to be loading in the malt bags. And...
It's what I love, but I think any brewer that starts their own company realizes after a while you get away from the brew house pretty quick and you start running the company. So it's always a joy to get back in there.
Yeah. So tell me, I mean, we're in a slightly unusual place for maybe Czech lager, German lager, particularly given that you're 9 years old. Like, that's quite an old company. Where did the inspiration come for that?
I've been brewing since 1993 professionally. And in 2005, I took my first trip to the Czech Republic, and I sat in the Golden Tiger in Prague and had an epiphany about beer. And that changed everything. And I was really American ale, British ale guy, and I had that Pilsner Kell from the tank unpasteurized, and it changed my life. And since then, Germany and Czech Republic really been an inspiration for brewing because I love the beer so much. And technically, they're so challenging.
Yeah.
They're very, very challenging, and I love that process challenge where the ingredients are important, but the process really is so influential over the final beer. And as a brewer, that's what we love to do. We love process. So started Notch in 2010. And when I did that, because I've been brewing in the Boston area for a long time, I knew a bunch of brewery owners. And I started on this concept of modest alcohol beer at a time when high alcohol beer was really driving the market in Massachusetts. And so I wanted to prove this concept out that, Czech lager, German lagers of modest strength would have legs before I built a brewery. And so I did that for 5 years at other breweries in the area using their equipment in either contract or gypsy brewing, as it used to be called.
Yep.
And then we proved out that Notch was successful. And we brewed a 10,000 barrel brand, and it was easy to build this place at that point because we knew we had the customers.
You were one of the few people doing that at the time, but now there are a couple of lager focused breweries, like there's Von Trapp up in Vermont, there's Jack's Abbey. Is there something about lager in this region, or is that?
I think there's diversity in this region. So Jack's Abbey, I think, started just after us. I mean, just really close. And Von Trapp may have been producing their smaller original brewery, but just before us. We all started around the same time. But I find New England has a larger diversity than most of the rest of the country in terms of the styles that are being produced by the brewers being produced. And you look at some of the brewers here that are really well known. Allagash, for example, a Belgian focus. And then you have the Vermont brewers who focused on hoppy pale ales, hop forward, not bitter, but flavorful and aromatic. And then you look at Massachusetts with all the lager producers that we have here. So I go to other parts of the country and I find a lot of sameness. And here there's a lot of diversity. I think it's why this scene is really cool. But not only in styles, but then in ABVs too. Because we came out and was like, what are you doing, right? Lower ABV, no one's going to buy that.
Have a day off.
People value that because they want to sit in the beer hall and have 3 or 4, right? And then go to dinner and not fall asleep. So I think the diversity here has really, really driven lager's acceptance, because people are looking for more than just, hazy IPA, pastry stout, and sour. Our scene's much bigger than those three dominant styles right now in craft beer.
Yeah. I feel like also in this region, a lot of the brewers we've been talking to have been obsessives. So you had that Golden Tiger moment. Some people got obsessed with the New England IPA style. Chatting to like John Kimmich, he was obsessed with his Conan yeast and with sustainability. And it seems like the variety comes from the fact that all of you guys are very provenance-driven or very style-driven and drilling right down into these different styles and kind of really championing one particular thing that you guys love doing, which seems like very New England. It's like, this is what I love and this is what I do.
I never really thought about that, but that's definitely true. Again, Allagash, they're
yeah. It's like, I love wit beer. I'm going to brew it, see what happens.
A very singular focus, and they've been true to it for a long, long time. And yeah, for us, it was lager. I mean, it was also, we also produced the New England style pale ale, session IPA and IPA, because we do love that beer. So we have a broader base than just lager, but lager definitely is. If you put us in the corner, and we'll tell you it's lager. Yeah. But when you start to have that narrow focus, you really get into the minutia and details of that style. And when I was planning this place, I wanted to make sure everything we had from an equipment standpoint allowed us to do anything we wanted to do. So we have a decoction brewery that can do double, triple decoction. We have open fermenters like you would find in Bavaria or the Czech Republic. We have horizontal lagering tanks. We do natural carbonation either with Spunding or Kreuznach.
Oh, I love this brewery so much.
Tools that we can use because we're geeks about it. Because I thought ahead, like we need to have those tools to make the very, very best beer.
Just Chris nerding out about technicalities of lager.
Being produced
nice.
In the Czech Republic, are you looking to compete with those guys, or are you looking to be a little bit different?
That's a really good question. I never want to be a me too. I'm never trying to replicate something. I'm trying to make sure. I want to be able to make sure that I could make those beers the way they're made, and then put our little touch on it, whatever that may be. I've talked about this before. I don't really like riffs on everything. Like if you come up and make a riff on something, so try to make it as it is, and understand how to make it that way, and then do it in a way that's your own. So what we did with the standard was I tried to make what I thought was the Czech Pilsner. And instead of using Saaz, we used Sterling, just to give it a little bit different profile. And so it gives a little more lemon than you would find in a Saaz. But then when we did Tenor, which is our 10 Plato beer, that's all Saaz. F it, that's what I want to do, right? I want to have this straight up Czech session Pilsner at that kind of strength, but also in those same kind of nuanced flavors you would find in the Czech Republic. So we're not trying to copy the Czech Republic, but we're pretty damn close. We just want to put little our influences on it. We're not going to dry up with fucking Mosaic or Citra in the Pilsner.
So I think we can safely say that New England should be known for a lot more than New England IPA. What I'll now associate it with is an obsession with process and quality beyond anything we've experienced. Every brewery had something they focused on, from which they organically grew and diversified.
We went 7 days without having a bad beer, and we drank from a lot more breweries than we got to show in this film. New England beer is on another level.
More than that, they've built a wide-ranging, exciting beer industry that to a huge degree has made macro beer feel like the cottage industry trying to break through. It feels sustainable, and I use that word in every sense.
Right, because we haven't even touched on the other greatest takeaway from the whole trip. So let's rewind.
Every single brewery mentioned a way in which they were helping to protect their environment. They had a dedication to sustainability completely untouched in younger scenes, whether that was using local ingredients, dealing with waste effectively, or refining their systems to use less water. They all had systems in place, even the relative giant that's Allagash.
We try to dial things in. It's almost like a game, how efficient we can get things. And when you start getting efficient, you start becoming very sustainable, and then you also start saving money. So when you start saving money, Rob, reinvest that money back into the brewery. A really good way to measure our efficiencies is our water usage. Typically in the US industry, 8 to 12 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of beer. We have it dialed in down to 3 gallons. There's a family, the Bucks family up in Mapleton, Maine. They're growing us wheat now, which is awesome. We're incorporating more and more Maine grown grains into all of our beers. 16 counties is a beer that we make that's all main grain, all malted here. Really exciting. We're really proud of that. When Rob goes into our board of directors, we're a pretty big brewery. We have a board, and he goes in with Jason, and they're like, we're going to buy 1 million pounds of main grown grains by 2021. They shake their heads. They're like, Rob, that costs 3 times as much. And Rob says, that's not why we're doing it. We're going to incorporate more main grains. This is our state. This is our home. It's very important that we do this. Just like with our fruits that we use in our wild beer program, they're all fresh, local, and whole, all local farmers. We don't use fruits from away, which is really great. So we're really involved with that. All the flaked oats that are in Allagash right now are all main grain, every batch, which is really great. And every 9th, 10th batch, we're incorporating more raw wheat and malted red wheat from Maine, which is great. Big piece of who we are.
The real warriors, though, can be found at Alchemist, where their commitment to sustainability is indisputable. Where other breweries would put more tanks, a tap room, or a barrel room, the Alchemists have built dedicated facilities to reduce waste and energy. Prepare to have your mind blown.
We need to reduce our waste that we produce. So we do that a couple different ways. The easiest thing is side streaming. So these cubes, we fill these every day with yeast that we don't use, with full strength wort through the brewing process, with the hops that come out of the whirlpool, with the last gallons of weak wort that come out of the mash tun, like when we clean the kettle, all that trube, all of that all gets collected in these cubes and transported via pumper truck to the Vermont Technical College down in Randolph, Vermont. They have a digester there that produces electricity for their college campus with our brewery waste. Our permit doesn't allow us to put out more than 65 pounds of BOD a day, biological oxygen demand. It's food for bacteria in those wastewater treatment facilities. 65. Through side streaming, we get down to that 20 to 30 pounds a day, which is great. But again, we knew we could do better. So when we built this, we designed our own wastewater treatment facility in-house. So what goes down the drain here that normally gets metered and accounted for in Waterbury, we put that through a secondary process. So I'll talk as we walk. These drains go to 2 5,000-gallon tanks buried in the front yard. First tank is a settling tank where solids will drop to the bottom. The second overflow tank is the pumping tank where we take it into our facility. So we've done most of our work ahead of time by pulling the really high strength stuff out and sending it off to Grow Compost, the company that transports it, and get it to the technical college. So the waste gets pumped in here. Hi, Steve. It smells great in here today. So we bring that waste in here at a measured rate of 5 gallons a minute, and it feeds this reactor. You see the information on there, moving bed biofilm reactor. There's a specific culture of bacteria in there that breaks down our waste. It goes in like the image on the left. The bacteria does its work on there. There are millions and millions and millions of these little plastic pellets in there that house the bacteria. That's where the bacteria lives and thrives. The noise you hear is the air. You aerate it. It's an aerobic digester, so it needs air to keep the bacteria alive so that it keeps eating. When it's done its work, it comes into this system over here. As it goes into this device, there's a polymer injected to it. Air is bubbled up through it. It breaks the waste out of solution, coagulates it, is skimmed off the top, and then pumped into these blue drums. So it's called high strength sludge at this point, which is appropriate because that is the organic waste that has been stripped out of the liquid that goes down our drains. This is what we discharge to the town of Stowe's wastewater facility. So that number I threw at you before of 20 to 30, we put out consistently less than a half a pound a day here, which is a lot less than a 3-bedroom single-family home. And we're a commercial brewery.
We've never seen the kind of work that these breweries are doing before. And to be honest, it made us slightly ashamed of our own efforts and those of breweries back home. Craft beer presents itself as the good guys, the alternative to unsustainable practices, to lack of diversity and to greed. These breweries have exposed how thin that veneer is and how shallow our words are sometimes. It was humbling for us to see.
Jen and I when we met and we conceived of having a business, what kind of business we wanted to have, those were the things we thought about. We'll never forget crappy bosses. We'll never forget greedy people. We're going to use those as examples of what we don't want to be, you know, and it perpetuates itself. The more kindness and effort you put into what is around you, the more that wants to give back to you, you know. So it's a cool thing, and we tried very hard every day to maintain that and keep that atmosphere here at the Alchemist, you know. And it can be replicated. You can run a business like this. You can have an eye toward your employees, and you can have an eye toward the earth and the environment, and still be a shrewd business person and make it all work.
We expected to have amazing beer throughout the trip, but what we didn't expect was for it to be so ingrained in the identity of the area. We always thought of New England as that new cool place in craft beer, but we've been fooled by the gram. It's been brilliant for decades, and it's ahead of the curve in ways we couldn't even imagine before this trip.
If you dig even just a little into the culture, you find even more exciting life teeming underneath. The best things aren't shown on Instagram or Twitter, because how can you interact with the amazing characters? How can you taste the variation? How can you measure the environmental impact these breweries have made?
Well, hopefully, you can do it on YouTube. And if it turns out you can't, then you'll just have to go there yourselves.
Yo, Patreons! Woo! And there we go, guys. What a fucking trip.
Whoa, it's super zoomed in. Whoa.
What a trip, guys. Yeah, I hope that was enjoyable. I hope that you guys have really enjoyed it if the first time you've watched it, or enjoyed it again if it was the second time. Like so I watched a bit of that as a bit of research for this, but otherwise I haven't seen that, I think, since we showed it on it was the 29th of May, so we're trying to get as close to a year as we possibly could. And wow, yeah, what a trip we had. How fucking privileged were we? So firstly, thank you so much for all the Patreons, because that cost us about $3,000 to make, 6 days to film, and we made about $50 in advertising revenue off the back of it. So that was almost entirely funded by Patreon, and that's what most of that money goes to. So can't thank you guys enough for being involved in that.
I mean, it's literally how we do what we do. Sadly, we might be one of the biggest, but we're still in a niche where we can't sort of demand the advertising revenue, or we just don't get the figures. We're not making viral stuff here.
No,
so we're not washing our cars in beer.
He's saying an hour. Well, I mean, that's only semi-viral, bless him. Yeah, so we'd love to have any questions from you guys. Like, quite a few came in, and I tried to answer as many as I could, like, there and then. But I'd love to hear some more questions from you. And thanks so much for all the lovely comments we're getting.
Mate, what an experience that was, though. Like, honestly, I love you, man. And I love that we get to do this. And hopefully we'll get to do this again once the world settles down and becomes a little bit less crazy. But for now, we've just got to live vicariously and watch, the fruits of our past labours. I'm quite into watching Chinese Oktoberfest because I didn't get to go. So I quite like to watch that. I think we could do a lot of these live watch-alongs. I think we could do a lager one and all get pissed on lager while we're watching it.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the format, we can pick some of the longer format stuff we have. Like anything over about 15, 20 minutes means we can interject every now and then. A lot of our other documentary stuff is less intense with the words, so we could probably interrupt a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously we were trying to keep it to a minimum, the chit chat, but we could ramp up the chit chat. That's not a problem. That's what we do. So if you want more chit chat, let us know.
Vessel Beer, thank you so much for your super chat tip.
I doff my cap to you.
I'll be the guy from
Geordie LaForge.
Trek.
Geordie LaForge.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it second time around. Thank you so much for the donation. You guys are absolute legends. And next time we're down in Cornwall, we will come visit. And if anyone else is ever in Plymouth, it is the beer shop to visit, for sure. So yeah, any questions, send them all in, and we will start answering them as we go. I'll give you some more stats just while we flick through these lovely comments. So yeah, we spent 8 days out there in total. We were filming on 6 of those days, otherwise it was travel. We were out there like 20th to 29th of March. It took me until end of May to edit, and we released it on the 29th. It was a lot of work for just 2 of us to do. But I mean that, weirdly, we've written 2 books now, and I'm kind of more proud of the documentary than I am of the books.
I mean, I'd hold that up against a lot of stuff that you see on Netflix, to be honest, or Amazon. And maybe that's a bit bold to say that, but I think we're talking about quite a niche stuff. But it's, we've gone to these places, we've lived it, and I think the pure joy of it transmits through the screen, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. Maybe we try to keep our cool a little bit on camera. I don't know, like some of those moments. Like
that's why I'm not on camera very much.
you had a fair whack there. I mean, I was doing the interviews, but otherwise,
yeah. I'm also shy. I clam up around big, important, amazing brewers. I just sort of lose my shit.
It's a weird thing, and it's why Craft Beer Channel works, I think, because when we're talking to big, important brewers, like I've got the questions and the knowledge and the history, whereas like when we have situations where like we're going somewhere where we haven't necessarily been invited or something, and I'm like, we can't film without permission. We can't just go up to somebody and say, hey. Brad's just like, why? And he just goes up to them, and I'm just in the corner like a guy at a disco who asks a girl to dance, just like...
I'm more guerrilla warfare style. Johnny's more... like like just smashing it. I don't know how to describe it. I'm guerrilla, you are organized.
I think I'm all business.
Maybe
Ben from Filmbusters, thank you very much for the tip. We're living the life and bringing the best of subculture to the forefront. Thank you very much, Ben. I hope that all the stuff that we do inspires people. I've seen lots of lovely comments coming through of people who've been to places we've been to, and that's kind of... it's not why we do this. We do this because it's a lot of fun and we love making this community. But the reason why we choose lots of these things, like the New England documentary, the Florida content, the West Coast content, the Czech content, the reason we travel is because we want to inspire people to travel as well. Like we do think that beer is best enjoyed where it's made, where you're surrounded by the culture that created it. Not for some wanky reason to go like, oh, I learned from this. But because, Pilsner Urquell tastes best in Pilsen. It's served by people who know how to serve it. It goes with the food that it's supposed to go with, and you might meet some interesting people. And it's the same in New England, like if you drank Alchemist mulled to the UK, not looked after, it's going to taste very different to what it did when we got fresh Focal Banger, their IPA, out of the tank. Not going to lie, it's kind of rancid. But in the tasting room where they had the proper pours of it, it was beyond anything I tasted in a can by those guys. It was absolute magic. So that's what we want people to experience, because that's what's got us kind of hooked.
And I think, I feel so privileged to have met all these amazing, like, passionate people along the way, like John Kimmich, Chris on that trip as well. Fucking hell, these people! I think the passion, you can taste it in the beer. It's incredible. You know, I had a little bit of a connection with John. He sorted me out with some extracurriculars while we were stateside.
Which I still maintain was a bad idea, right? It was legal, and we were checking when we were given these extracurriculars. We were like, "Is that legal?" And he was like, "Yeah, so long as you only consume it on private premises." And we're like, "We're staying in hotels and in a hire car. When are we going to use that?" Brad just snuck around the corner of a hotel, didn't you?
Yeah, I smoked a massive fat blunt. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching. I smoked this massive fat blunt of this Brooklyn Diesel strain, which was like mind-blowingly good, out on the street. And Johnny was telling me not to do it because he thought I was going to get arrested and like beaten up and everything, which, to be honest, could have happened. But it was fucking cool.
If you'd been sober when you did that, I'd have been like, "Yeah, cool, just be careful." But the thing is, like, and I have a video on my phone.
I was pissed as a motherfucker. Yeah.
So it was after the karaoke night, and we got back to the hotel room, and Brad just sat there in a chair, like just slumped like this. He's like, I'm gonna go smoke it. And I was filming him trying to roll it, and he just
I can't roll anyway, so you know. We're gonna do the craft gear channel, Johnny, when it's legalized
eventually.
So you better get with the program, mate. You know.
I'm with it. Gotta
get with the smokes.
Right, Ben Dawson, thank you very much for your tip. Oh, and for being a Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting us in what we do. I wonder if you're a Patreon during that, in which case, double thanks for the documentary. But I promise we'll be using your funds to come up with another one. Lord's Brewing, thank you so much. You're always so generous during these live shows.
John. Thanks, John. Thanks for being so vocal on these as well. Like, it really does mean a lot that you're engaging with everybody. And, you know, we're all about community and stuff. So I appreciate you sending us lovely beers as well. And, you know,
enjoyed the lager that you sent us. That was nice.
Check out Lord's Brewery, guys. Check it out. It's fucking great. They're posting stuff out. So, yeah. Thanks, John.
Right. Let's go through the comments that weren't super chats. Right, I'm just trying to find the start of the questions. Here we go. Did all the breweries sell cool merch? Every single one of them. Was Bissell your favourite?
Okay, I think Allagash had the choicest swag. They had, if I remember correctly, they had some very high quality beach towels.
They did. You were eyeing up the beach towels.
Absolutely
the cool
gorgeous.
Boxes, yeah.
The cool box was about $300, which is not. That ain't realistic. I'm not gonna spend $300 on a metal cool box.
I mean, I looked at it.
I mean, I would have done. I already have 2 vintage cool boxes, metal cool boxes. I've got a Pepsi one from the 1950s, and I've got a Coca-Cola one from the 1950s. So I couldn't get an.
I need an Allagash one from the 2010s.
Exactly. I mean, it's going to be made in China probably, whereas mine are American.
No, not with Allagash.
I don't know. But it was $300. The beach towels were sexy as fuck, though, so I wish I'd got one. But yeah.
Next question, Tom Purdy. How many miles did you travel? How did you get around the drink driving? So we planned it incredibly carefully, which meant that we had to visit a couple of breweries while drinking. So we visited Treehouse while drinking. We visited Bissell while drinking, and we visited Hill Farmstead while drinking. Weirdly, so there we just have one drink, buy a load of stuff to take away, enjoy some at the hotel, or share it with some people who we met on the road, or take it home, obviously. And miles we travelled, we went from Boston to Burlington to Portland to Treehouse down in, I think it's near Springfield, Connecticut, and then back up to Boston. I seem to remember it was just shy of 1,000 miles in total.
So we went to,
triangle.
I put it in my list, we went to Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Did we go to New York State on that visit? I can't remember.
No, we didn't.
Connecticut. We went to all of those, and yeah, it was how many miles do you think?
I think it was just shy of 1,000 miles.
About 1,000 miles, and we had the best Subaru. I don't think it was. Well, I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't an Outback, but it was bigger than an Outback.
They upgraded us, and it was friggin' sweet. That
so
made it
good.
a lot easier. Because we put like a shitty little car, and if you saw that little drive we did up to Hill Farmstead, that would not have ended well in a fucking Nissan Micra. Are we still doing Beer Stash episodes? Yes, one went live today. We did 5-year-old Westphaletteren, which is not as good as Rochefort. So give that a little look. We've got some more coming as well, some more Belgian sours and stuff like that. Is the girls' coat strip still on? Yeah, it is. A cowboy in Sweden.
Yeah, bet it is. You fucking cowboy. I'm a cowboy in London. I think we should be pals.
Love the documentary, guys. Where would you want to travel to next to do a documentary, or why? So the documentary we were going to film this year was lager based. So it would have been Bamberg, Munich, Pilsen, Prague, those sort of areas. So we will hopefully still do that. Maybe it'll be around about this time next year. We also have a documentary planned for London, which we might enact instead, depending on how COVID goes. Yeah, we'll just have to see. It doesn't look like international travel is particularly ethical, even if it's allowed. We want to be careful. Hey, Cowboy Brad.
Cowboy Sweden. Howdy.
Best beer and food experience. Ooh.
That's a tricky one.
Actually, I'll tell you what mine was. So just short of Burlington is a town, Montpellier, which I think is the capital of Vermont.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, it was like
Town.
small. It's a small town, but I think it was the capital.
Beautiful buildings and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and we went to the three penny tap room, which had a Judicial tap takeover on, which is always a good sign. Heady topper in cans to take away. And I had a fucking banging Reuben, and Brad had you had the Canadian poutine.
I fucking did. I mean, I love a poutine. Whenever I can get it, give me chips and gravy. You know, whether we're in Canada or we're in Northern England, chips and gravy, stick some cheese on there, cheese curds. You're on to a winner.
So yeah, that was amazing. We didn't have much time actually to enjoy the restaurant scenes properly. Also, High Roller was fucking amazing. Their lobster rolls and their moon pies, which I think they said was still made by their gran, or maybe it was their gran's recipe.
I think
High Roller is owned by Pete Bissell, who we interviewed from Bissell Brothers. That was banging tea.
The best place I ate out there, well, the most fancy place we went was with Chris from Notch when he took us out for dinner. Incredible place. And I can't even remember what it was called, but it was like...
It was called the Old Bank.
Oh, wow. What a
And it
place.
was an old bank.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
We had delicious food there, and they very kindly bought us dinner to say thanks for including them in the doc. And Chris is an absolute fucking gent, and that meal can't have been cheap, but it was special. And they had a fucking killer beer list in that restaurant as well. Unfortunately, we were too pissed for me to remember what we actually drank, what we actually ate. But it was a lot of Notch and a lot of Allagash, I think, that we drank.
Yeah, in an amazing like Greek pizza restaurant as well, I seem to remember.
In Burlington, I think that was.
Burlington, yeah.
Like the big pizzas brought out on the levels.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was after our time at Foam when we were really drunk. I remember you being like, I don't want to eat this. Like, I'm not hungry. And I was like, you get that fucking down you, because I don't know. I know how much we drank today at Foam.
Down you, yeah.
Given the quality of any IPAs being produced by UK breweries now, do you think it's still worth seeking out and paying way over the odds for Heady Topper? From a like a muling point of view, if you're not in that region, fuck no. In the UK,
I think you got to give it a go, once in a lifetime style. But I would say maybe don't mule it. Maybe, once lockdown's over, get on Norwegian Air if it's still going. I think all the airlines are fucked, but if those guys are still going, cheapest airline about, amazing,
Dreamliner, Boeing. Is it Boeing?
Yeah,
Boeing Dreamliners. Great in entertainment, in-flight entertainment, free shit, all good.
Okay, in-flight entertainment.
Cheap.
Crazy cheap. Like our flights were probably about 300 quid returns.
I think this is what we've done. I mean, like, we literally, this is not even a joke, tried to get Norwegian Air to sponsor us because the places we could go with those guys and highlight the places you can travel with them for, like, not a lot of money would be amazing. But obviously there are other airlines out there and they don't sponsor us. So fuck you, Norwegian Airlines.
Yeah. So yeah, go there if you can. But I mean, Heady Top is an interesting one because nobody really makes beer like Alchemist, like the big, bitter, dank New England style beers. So maybe for Heady Topper, but you know, to be honest, for Foam, for Bissell, like this guy's making stuff that good in whatever country you're in, if you're in a good beer country. So to be honest, it's reached that point where muling, you're actually going to get a substandard product because it's not going to be treated right. But it's still, I think, for Heady Topper, it's worth it. Allagash is worth it. Notch, it would be worth it if you're nowhere near the Czech Republic. If you live on the west coast of America, get some fucking Notch in. I'm not aware of anyone on the west coast doing stuff that good. When is the CBC International Beer Tours coming? As
soon as the borders are open again, we're hands across Europe. When I say hands across Europe, like begloved hands,
gloved hand across Europe. Yeah,
Europe, with face mask.
Not the Michael Jackson hand, but like a anti-COVID hand.
We need to wait a little bit, but like in all seriousness, Johnny, how amazing would that be? We've got to do Brussels beer trip. We've got to do all these things, mate.
It would be amazing, yeah. We are slipping well behind where we need to be. Okay, sorry. I think we've just had a tip from Matus. Thank you so much for your tip. Thank you so much for tuning in from Slovakia. We will definitely, almost certainly spend that on Pilsner. So
€1.60 for a beer in Slovakia. Amazing.
I wish. Thank you very much for that. That's very much appreciated, and thanks so much for subscribing.
Thank you, Mattis.
Where are we? Just going to flash that one up there. Best beer documentary scene. Woo! Thanks,
Woo-hoo.
Ben.
Great beard, Ben. I love the fact that we can put faces to names now.
I know, we're getting there, aren't we? Yeah.
Rich Harper, who's just pink, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what he looks like.
When you say UK doing juicy beers just like the US now, do you think so? Yeah, I mean, of that list, Vale and Trillium are very inconsistent breweries. I think Daya, Verdant, Cloudwater, equally as consistent and at their height just as good as all these guys over in the States. I think we're always going to be a tiny bit behind, and we're talking absolute nuances here because we don't get the best selection of the hops always. But the bigger these breweries get, the more access they're going to have to them. I honestly don't think there's any difference in quality between the best of the UK and the best of the US now in terms of just drinkability. If you're going to deconstruct it in like a judging environment, maybe there will be some difference. I've missed a tip here. Sorry, dear Muid Macmachadha.
Damod.
Yeah, it's probably just Damod Macmachadha. Favorite Irish breweries. Whiplash are the fucking best. Land and Labour make incredible mixed firm sours. White Hag, I think that their sour beers are absolutely stellar. None of them are quick sours. They're all like mixed firm stuff. Sorry?
Tasting good in our live show.
Fucking was. The Puka's an amazing beer. So yeah, if you've got any tips, do let us know because we'd always love to hear of more great stuff. Where are we? Thank you for Patreoning. After this is all over, where's next? What is in the craft beer channel? It's never going to end. We're going to pass it down to our kids.
We're going to Mars with Elon Musk.
That's the next documentary. Us and Elon Musk locked in a spaceship with a lot of Bretty beers.
and his child THX136, whatever it's called.
It's the northwest of the UK, of the US on the cards. We would fucking love to do that.
West, hell yeah!
We just had, very excitingly, Yakima Chief Hops just became a pro Patreon. So we're going to have a chat with them about maybe some content we can do. That will get us out there. And maybe we can do some content with the hops and indeed, of course, the amazing breweries out there. Where would you want to travel to do your next documentary and why? Did we do that one? Have I?
Yeah, we already said that, but that's cool. I mean,
so the Lager Triangle of Central Europe is the plan.
Yeah. We got lots of plans though. We got to do lots of different things, haven't we, Johnny? We're going to look into real ale stuff in the UK side. Many adventures on the way. As soon as we're allowed to get out back on the road, man.
Yeah, as soon as it's safe, we'll be back out there. Glad to see that Tom Slankard went to Notch on a Boston beer trip and loved it. That's what we love to hear, and they are amazing.
What's a Boston beer trip? I want to go on a Boston beer trip.
Well, that's what the documentary was.
But he sort of makes it sound quite commonplace. Like that's a regular thing.
I think people travel to Boston for the beer, yeah.
Boston beer
We
trip.
just did or New England on top of Boston.
The guy that we gave all those beers away to, I kind of regret now.
Yeah, so we couldn't fit all the beer we want to bring back in our suitcase. So we met a guy on the street. We tried to organise a meetup in Boston and nobody could meet us. So we just gave it to a guy on the street, just handed him a mixed case of like Heady Topper, foam stuff, probably some Bissell stuff as well. He said his son was in the military and loved that kind of stuff. So it went to a good cause, hopefully, but he didn't know what he was talking about.
It was how many beers? Like 24 beers at least, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a full case he gave him.
Like a couple hundred, like $100, no more worth of beer.
Yeah. If he was just bullshitting us and didn't have a son and didn't know anything about beer, he'd have taken one sip of Heady Topper and gone, "What the fuck is this?" Without a bit of breaking in, Heady Topper would be like earwax. The amount of bitterness in that. Loving the Proclaimers reference. Thank you, Father Earth 93. If you're born in 93, then good on you for knowing that song. Thank you very much for your tip, High Hops podcast. Much love to you. Brad's storming off, but that's cool. Yeah, really appreciate you having me on the podcast. Brad will be on it next time if we can do another one together. Treehouse is in Worcester. Isn't in Worcester, it's in Charlton, MA. So somebody said it's in Worcester, then somebody said it's in Charlton. It's in New England. It's like about just over an hour from Boston. Cheers for answering the questions. Great trip. I bet it's difficult to control the drinking when you're in amazing places. The toughest thing is it's really hard for one of us. One of us is driving, so you know that's it. You have one beer, you're done. It's much harder for the other guy who's like, "We should stick around, man. We should stick around for one more." And the other one's like, "But the hotel's the next stop. Then I can drink." But luckily, Brad and I both love driving, so at least there's no arguments. Like particularly in the morning, we're like, "I'll drive," and he's like, "No, you drove the last one."
Especially when you're in an amazing, huge American whip.
Yeah, very true.
Cruises along.
It was good to drive that.
But it's just small and rubbish. You know, those hire cars, very luxury, Johnny, aren't they?
I know. I only hire cars now. You get a much better form of car. It's a good investment. Would you consider writing a book to go with the documentary? I have tried so hard to pitch articles around our New England trip. Nothing has come of it of yet. We'd love to do, I guess the kind of idea is once we've done all our documentaries to try and do a book called One for the Road that is all the journeys we've taken. What would be cool to know is if you guys would help us fund that and we wouldn't even need to try and get a book deal to get that just out there. So yeah, if you guys would sort of throw a couple of quid and we'd come together and get a book. It's cat time, is it? Hey, there's Jeffrey.
Hey. We've got a Jeff.
Got a Jeff.
She's gone.
Montpellier is the capital of Vermont. Boom. Memories. Questions. Hey, I think we've caught up.
Does anybody? What do we want to watch next? Because I'm quite enjoying the watch along. So I muted the idea of maybe a lager theme one where we watch a couple of lager videos, maybe some Czech stuff, whatever, or Chinese Oktoberfest. I think would be hilarious.
Or our Florida stuff, like our
Florida stuff will be
origins of Berlin of Florida Vice. Sorry.
In the same way as this, I think that would be a cool sort of worthy watch.
Yeah, so do let us know if there's a video you fancy. Maybe if you see a video you fancy, just put in the comments like, we'd love to see a watch along version of this, and that'll come straight to us and we can pick that up. But if it's a format you guys like, then we can keep doing it for our longer form stuff. For sure. Have we not thought of hiring an intern to do the driving? That's brutal, man. We couldn't get a designated driver unless we were paying them, and we're not able to pay people yet. But maybe one day we would, for sure. If we could pay them and they could drink in the evening, yeah, that's the dream, really.
Pay them in beer. We could pay them in free beers that we get, Johnny. That'll work.
It's not payment. The amount of offers we've had of free beer as payment, Brad. How dare you try to pass that along?
That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, we'd love to hire people to help produce as well, because as you probably notice, unless we're doing interviews where the cameras are static, or the stuff we produce at home, one of us has to be behind camera. And if we ever got to the point where we could hire somebody, the first thing we do would be to hire a cameraman, so that Brad and I could be sat there with these people chatting. Because although Brad wouldn't have the immediate questions, he is, as we've said, the king of chit chat.
I'm the late night chit chat king.
Yeah, you need to do like the 2 to 4 a.m. slot on the craft beer channel.
That's it.
I think. Ooh, there's a question. Would really appreciate a place of sorts. Watch along with you guys on a certain theme. Okay, so you think like a couple of videos we could watch. So we could watch all of the Florida content in a row and then have a chat about that.
Yeah, Florida, or about lager, or about, we could pick stuff that's about a certain style of beer.
That's a kind of cool idea, like a lager night, all our lager content brought together, watch all of them and then have a chat. Good idea, Ben.
Big time.
We'll have a think about that. Are you planning more homebrew videos? Oh boy, are we planning homebrew videos? So before the lockdown, we were hoping to do lots more homebrew videos and launch a whole playlist dedicated to it. That's still going to happen, so we won't give any spoilers there. But we're working on that. Obviously, during lockdown, Brad and I can't be together, but we're nearly at the point where we can. So that will happen hopefully this year still. However, next week, don't hold me to it, but either next week or the week after, we will be releasing a homebrew video in which I attempt to produce and serve real ale via a hand pump at home, because that's what I'm missing most. So hopefully there'll be a video, 2 videos coming around that. And we've also got a collab video coming up with Glenn Afric, our favourite and first pro Patreon subscriber. So we brewed a non-pastry stout with them. So we tried to recreate the Tunnocks wafer without using any adjuncts in an imperial stout. And that video is coming in a couple of weeks as well. So lots of brewing content coming. There won't be just me doing beer stash videos for the next couple of weeks. So yes, definitely homebrew and professional brew stuff coming. Lord's Brewing Co. has given us another tip.
Oh, man.
Saying I'll sponsor you to take me. So you're saying if you're paying and you're driving? Deal.
I mean, deal. And John, you used to make custom cars for a living. So if you can build us a pimped ride to ride around in, and then we all film it together, I'm into it.
There you go. It's not just a watch along, it's a content creation system. Best lager brewery in the UK? Ooh. The lager I would most like to drink that's made in the UK is Don Zoco Northern Hellas. However, if we're looking at like broad spectrum of lots of different lagers, then it's Lost and Grounded. And then if it's Bohemian style, Czech style brewing, then it's Braybrook.
I also enjoy the Howling Hops, drinking it.
But that's a Kolsch.
It is a Kolsch, but I mean, that's a lager, isn't it? Pretty much. Sort of. Ish.
Beer historians disagree. Beer drinkers would agree. It's a toughie. It's a toughie. What do you think the first beer festival after lockdown will be? I believe, well, they haven't cancelled Indie Man yet in the UK.
What about a beer festival during lockdown, Johnny? Because there are things.
We're working on some shit.
Things are afoot. Things are
afoot. Yeah, let us know what you'd love to see. If there was going to be a digital beer festival, we'd be selling a box so you guys could drink everything. Let me know what you would love to see, and we can have a chat and see what we can make possible. Because that's definitely something we'd like to do. We're just trying to make it work financially and time-wise and make sure that it'd be well viewed. But we've definitely got some plans. Homebrew contest is always needed. We've been thinking about this, maybe doing a homebrew competition, getting people to send in homebrews. I don't quite know how it would work, but
Simon Cowell and who is Louis Walsh? Well, actually, I don't want to be Louis Walsh. So,
so scrap that question.
Table straight away. Simon Cowell and Sharon Osbourne.
I think you're Sharon, just because you got long hair. That's all I've got.
One of those things. I don't mind being Sharon Osbourne. She's cool. That's all right.
She is cool. Ben from Filmbusters, best meal to go with a pastry style. Depends what pastry's in there, Ben. Is chocolate cake a meal?
What a meal? I missed that.
Chocolate cake.
I mean, I've got chocolate cake in the kitchen, which I cooked earlier.
Whoa.
Actually, sorry, I didn't cook it earlier. I microwaved it earlier.
What? That's even more questions.
Yeah,
How do you microwave a cake?
Oh, I don't want to promote Tesco, but it was some sort of deal I got at the weekend. You got this sort of stuffed crust pizza. You got a side and a dip and stuff, and it was like £5. It was a great deal. So me and my girlfriend, we just had a little bit of chocolate cake before I came on air, so I didn't get pished.
Well, I never.
It's pretty good, to be honest, and it was definitely out of date, but it was still, you throw it in the microwave and nuke it. It's all right.
I'm going to leave that there. Kolsch is not a lager, it's an ale. Technically, yes, 100%. Flavor-wise, it's like a lager. Technical-wise, it's like an ale. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's a weird thing, weird, amazing style.
Sort of diagram of what is an ale.
Yeah, it's like a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
What brewers think, what drinkers think.
Yeah.
Kolsch.
No, but we did the thing about the. Do you remember in the different bacterias and the lagering and the ale process and all this stuff? Do you remember the diagram I did? The huge diagram.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. That's in Bissell. Yeah.
Into that weird little category, doesn't it? That diagram sort of hit on a video. What was it? I can't remember what video it was, but I think it was a cool diagram that I'd like to do as a poster or something. So it was very informative.
It's for the yeast beer school we did. Yeah, we might end up trying to print that. We looked at it as a Patreon perk for Christmas, didn't we? For the Christmas present for $10 Patreon. So if you're a $10 Patreon, you might get a beautiful printed version of a yeast family tree for Christmas.
Oh,
it's what all the kids are asking for.
Exactly.
Rob from Hopton said he did an online beer fest recently. We made festival glasses, streamed tribute bands off of YouTube, and scheduled a mid-session kebab. All interesting concepts. So you can't have got festival glasses made, right?
I think you're saying they made them at their own homes.
I hope so.
Maybe
Otherwise, we missed a banging party with hundreds of people. But that sounds cool.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Rob.
Yeah, jeez. Are you guys keen to do something about Mars and the desert? What do you mean, do something about them? What's wrong with them? Do they need sorting out? No, we love those guys, and we will be doing a video with them.
Yeah, big time.
They make incredible stuff. They're one of our. We put them in our breweries to watch for 2020, and we will be doing something with them as soon as we can travel up together and make a film with them, because their story from Pretty Things over in Boston to settling in Sheffield is a fascinating story. So definitely going to do something with them as soon as we can. Guys, I said we would finish at 10. We're at 10 past 10. So I'm going to call last orders on questions. If you've got anything else you're dying to ask, please do ask us now. If you are not already a Patreon supporter, please do join our Patreon. It makes everything that we do possible. So we'd much appreciate any of you guys joining. From $1, you get your name at the end of every video. $3, you get a patch once a year. Brad, we need to finalize those patches. Get sent out.
Yeah.
We're terrible at that. We apologize. They will be coming out. And for $10, you get all that and a Christmas present every year, which last year was a craft beer channel glass. This year, we're going to work on something new and exciting, possibly a printout of family yeast. Rob from Hopzine says they had custom glasses etched. That's fucking amazing. Where was our invite? That sounds cool. Can we have a BC Virtual Festival glass? Do you mean a CBC? We'll look into it. That might be tricky.
Find out how Rob had it done and then do that.
Yeah, look at the costs and see if we can manage it. It might be that we put craft beer channel glasses into the festival glasses that we do, although we've nearly sold out, which is not a sentence I thought I'd say. Very proud about that. So we'll definitely have a look into that. Jeffrey's coming to run away. Guys, yes. So thank you so much for your questions, all your comments. Thank you so much for all the tips that you've given us, and for all the Patreon supporters that we have out there, and just for watching our stuff. You don't need to give money to us to be so important to us. Like, we earn money through advertising, so watch the adverts, and we just love producing what we produce. So thank you for showing us that people care. We have got lots of fucking exciting stuff coming. We have got Friday. I am doing a live Instagram chat with the founders of Omnipollo for Cave Direct, which is the company I used to work for. So they import Omnipollo, and we're doing a live chat for a couple of hours. They've just founded their own brewery, so they're going to give us a tour of that, and I'll be asking questions. Do let me know if there's any questions you want me to ask them by joining that live show on the Cave Direct Instagram page on Friday from 8:30 p.m. Then next week, we've got our homebrew video, which I'm attempting to make cask ale at home. Then next Saturday, we have our live show with Cloudwater. So Paul from Cloudwater is going to be joining us to answer your questions. We're going to drink through 4 IPAs made with brand new 2019 crop hops, so the stuff harvested in September. Then what's the next event? I think about a week and a bit after that, we will be releasing our video of our collab with Glen Affric, our pastry non-pastry stout. And we're going to be selling that in a brewery case from Glen Affric for you guys to drink along with us, where we'll taste that Imperial Stout together. And hopefully we'll get somebody from Glen Affric on to answer questions as well. We're going to be doing another live show with Garage Beer Co. We'll be selling boxes for that. Whew. What else have we got, Brad? Is that everything?
I mean, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on.
Some of the fucking coolest breweries around the world, doing shit with them in the next 2 weeks. I don't know. I don't know how else you top it. I don't know what we should be doing.
No, it's possible we're peaking right now. It's all downhill from here.
I don't know about but I think we're punching. We're doing all right considering lockdown, considering the world's gone mad, considering we can't see each other.
Yeah. So, guys, a lot of that's down to you. So, thank you so much for watching and for donating and for all of your comments tonight. It makes these shows an absolute fucking pleasure to host. So, thank you very much. So, yeah, on Apollo Friday, big video next Wednesday, and then we're back with Cloudwater next week. And we will hopefully catch all of you at all of those, whether you get the box or not. We love you all very, very much. Stay safe, be good to each other, and Black Lives Matter. Cheers.
Oh.